Welcome everybody to another episode of Marvel Snap. Today we'll be looking at a new card that we'll be releasing tomorrow, which is White Widow. And oh boy, am I excited for this card. Her description is, on reveal, add a Widow's Kiss to your opponent's side of this location. Now, what a Widow's Kiss does is, this has -4 power, disable this ability if your side of the location is full. So first thing that comes to mind for this sort of card is you could use it for either lockdown or you could use it for literal junk deck, just a Goliath, spam cards over the side. But also, if worse comes to worse, you could always sneak in an Enchantress if it works out that way. Or you could do it in the likes of the Professor X, spam it down, locked in, all is yours and good. Or you can just do it with the Annihilus, with the debris, spread all the power everywhere, and just lock it down wherever required. Excuse me. But this looks like a really fun card. The matchups you'll be versing when this comes out, I have a funny feeling will be Destroy. Destroy will easily counter this for sure. White Widow is going to have a very, very hard time dealing with this type of Destroy package. But being a 2-2, I could see that being a very interesting early pull. Even in a possible bounce deck, where that will end, I'm not sure. But I've got two decks as a guide I have seen on the internet for now as a little template of where White Widow could shine, ways she could work, ways she could need some improvement. But in ways I'm wanting to see how she can be improvised and learn how her playstyle will go. Let's get straight to the decks and let's explain how the rundown is going to work. I'll see you there in just a moment. Okay, welcome to deck number 1. This one was created by Canadian Alfredo. I love it. Okay, as also I should mention before getting into this, I have not done a deck/card review, for a while. I wanted to catch up because I'm absolutely excited about White Widow. This is the next card I'm definitely wanting to lock in. I really want to try and get good at lockdown clutter decks, lockdown junk decks in a way. So I really want to start off with White Widow to see where she can shine and seeing where this comes off from here. Okay, first off, we've got the likes of the Lockdown deck, which involves the Nebula, Daredevil, White Widow, Jeff, Magic, Baron Zemo, Gladiator, Shang-Chi, Professor X, Cannonball, Dr. Octopus, and Red Hulk. Do not worry, I will run down some replacement cards where required for this deck if you do not have the likes of Cannonball and also Red Hulk and Baron Zemo. Let's start off from the low-cost card and work our way up to the high-cost card. So, we have got the Nebula, really good with the Professor X instant lockdown. If you know the lockdown package, Nebula, Professor X, you're in for a great chance. Daredevil, again, Daredevil with the Professor X, go into a lane, lock it down, you're good to go. Also with the Jeff, with the Professor X as well, as I currently don't have Jeff. Still don't have Jeff. I've been putting other cards first before Jeff. I really want to get Jeff. But I keep leaving this little guy out of the question. I really need to get him one day, and I'm hoping I do. But until then, Jeff is a fantastic card to have in the lockdown deck. Moving on, we have the White Widow, which will work very well even in a Nebula and Professor X lane. Got to make sure you do not clog up the lane. The reason is for that the Widow's Bite. The Widow's Kiss. Widow's Kiss, getting the two confused. The Kiss will go down to negate its effect. So you've got to be careful how you structure the deck around this White Widow. For instance, for the lockdown, you got to make sure you play very good and get that Professor X and Nebula out quickly as possible, which makes Daredevil very, very more reasonable. Moving on to Magic, you have that Magic which includes the Red Hulk package, which gives him more power overall if they decide to play less cards and boosting the Red Hulk's power. Moving on from Magic, and also, excuse me, before I do, the Nebula as well. So that works out very well there. So I'm looking forward to see how that package goes with the White Widow, of course. Baron Zemo, as well, taking one of their cards from their deck, putting it onto your side of the field, which can easily manipulate how they play their next card. Because if you take one of their core cards, they're in trouble. Gladiator, again, if you take one of their cards and destroy it, a beautiful stat line of 3-8 and can cripple their deck for sure. Shang-Chi, a beautiful tech card. Again, you can change that for something required or something more versatile if you choose to, but very good for sniping at the big cards. Professor X, the main purpose, another main purpose of this deck, if for instance something doesn't work out, locking down their lane, bam, they are done. Well, if they are doing a Jeff as well, got to watch out for those too, but vice versa, if you have the scenario pinned down, you're good to go. The next tech card in a way is Cannonball. Cannonball is another card which gets rid of their big cards into another lane or puts it into a rock, which can be very handy indeed. Which it's similar to a Shang-Chi in a way, but also gets the cards below 10 power, which can be very crucial. Dr. Octopus to clog up their lane where required, and also definitely helps out in a Nebula. And also lane, you can use Shang-Chi or Gladiator. So good for clogging, good for getting cards out into dangerous locations, and also helping out with the Red Hulk and Shang-Chi package. Lastly, we have the Red Hulk, big boy of the deck, and comboing with Magic and getting cards across the board with Red Hulk as a finale, you have got the game in the bag. Keep in mind, of course, of these Shang-Chis and any other cards like Shadow King. Overall, this deck, I actually quite like it, and I might possibly even use it, using, of course, the substitutes for Jeff and Cannonball. And Gladiator. I do not have Gladiator either, so keep those in mind. Okay, so the card would be, switching up from Baron Zemo, Cable is another good card that can take a card from the opponent's deck. Doesn't go onto the field, but as a 2-3 stat line, it's still a very decent card which works well with the likes of similar to Yondu. Yondu is another card which also disrupts their deck and also helps out really get rid of the cards that may be very precious to them. So between Yondu and Cable, you have a very good early chance. Nightcrawler is another one I'd switch up for the likes of Jeff. I know it cannot move into a Professor X lane, but it can move into the Sanctum Sanctorum or a location that's very hazardous. So I find that a good backup just in case you don't want to use the likes of Jeff or don't have him, But the other card you could switch up for Red Hulk is probably any other strong card that you can think of. Even in the lines of a 6-cost card, you can put in the Hulk, put in any other card you choose, Dr. Doom. I personally always love the likes of Vision, to be quite honest with you. A very solid substitute, I find, is Vision. Vision is a fantastic maneuverability card. If you want to play in their mind, want to switch things around, I just find that great with the likes of Nightcrawler. Very fun card, flexible, and if things go your way, hey, you can move them around the board anywhere you please. So that about sums up that deck for the likes of a Lockdown, with the White Widow, of course. We will now move on to the next one, which is called the Junk Widow deck. Let's get straight to it. Okay, this is the deck called White Widow Junk by Canadian Alfredo once again. Now, in this deck, you've got the classic Junk deck pretty much. You've got the Hood, Nebula, Titania. Is always good to clog up their lane if you play another card. Spam them into the 4th card. If they cannot play there no more, then she'll jump back to your location when things turn out right on turn 6. White Widow, Jeff, Green Goblin, Debris, Shang-Chi, the Sentry, Hobgoblin, Annihilus, and Red Hulk. We will substitute Red Hulk as well if you do not have him in the deck, and that is fine. So, we've got the likes of the Hood, which can get the classic demon play out, which is absolutely fantastic. We've got the likes of the Nebula, grows in power each time they want to play. And also, if you lock down their lane, you've got the likes of the Green Goblin and Hobgoblin plays to lock them up very good. Got the White Widow, again, to put the -4 Widow's Kiss, which is right here. This has -4 power, straight into their location, and bang, they're down in priority, which is fantastic. But also keep in mind not to lock up their lane too much where they lose the power. So depending on how the playstyle goes again, is how the locations and what deck they have. If they have Destroy, going to be very difficult for you. Let's put it that way. Okay. We've got the Jeff. Again, we will substitute this card if you do not have it, but very, very good to maneuver around the board. Green Goblin, classic 3 -3 cost card. Blocks them up straight away, and that's what you're really wanting to do. If you don't have those on the early turns, always make sure you've got your Nebula and the Hoods. Titania, do not play that early. Always make sure you play that later on in the game between turn 5 and or 6. Annihilus, always leave until the final turns on your side of the board with the Sentry, of course. Now, Debris. Got to make sure your playstyle is correct on with this one. Always works well if you put that in with the White Widow's Kiss area. So make sure you put it into the opposite lane, block up their board, then you're good to go. Shang-Chi, tech card, helps you out if they're going crazy on the board with their Destroy and or crazy deck, which all of a sudden is on Shuri's Lab for an example. So it's very good to counter what they're doing crazy strong. Or if they do have a similar Red Hulk deck, for instance. The Sentry, very good for putting the Void out, then annihilating back straight onto their board side of the field. Even the Hood as well. If for any reason these cards do stay on your side of the field, Annihilus can save you by destroying them later on in the game. So do not panic. And finally, we have the Red Hulk for his sheer power output. But for this case of this deck, I'll move on my version as of the substitute cards you can use for this deck if you're willing to try it for yourself. Let's move straight on to that. Then let's move to my ideas of that deck as well. Let's get straight to it. Okay, and here we are. So my substitutes for this, again for Jeff, Nightcrawler, move him around the board wherever you choose, and makes it easier for things to play out where required. The next one I chose to put in here was Vision. Vision is another fantastic card to put onto the board, which shifts from a later turn Jeff. Always love having this guy around as a backup for maneuverability around the board. I just love him. Sometimes if things happen where you want to play a card and they play a bigger card there, you can shift things around, change it into your favour, and hopefully grab the win. Also works well with possibly Titania. A very interesting card. I'm looking forward to trying this tech in particular in the likes of using the Lockdown Junk. Mainly Junk, of course, but I really want to see if this shines, and I'll be testing this out when White Widow comes around for that one. Please, if you do have any suggestions or comments on these decks, please let me know. I'm happy to hear your thoughts and looking forward to see where this goes from here with the White Widow. So let's get straight back to White Widow and let's go into our final thoughts before release date. Okay, we have the White Widow. Just changed it up to the Art Germ variant, which looks absolutely amazing. So, White Widow. I'm really looking forward to see how this one works out in these junk decks and even lockdowns. I'd love to see how this works with Professor X, Nebula, locking down one location, and then really smashing down one location with a giant Red Hulk or anything in particular. I believe this card's going to shine later on, but starting off, Destroy is going to be at the top of the league for sure. As soon as this releases, I'm going to probably see a lot of Destroy decks and similar White Widow decks. In this case, I'm probably going to give it a good rating, probably 4 out of 5 stars. I believe it's going to slow down a few decks if they're wanting to gain priority straight away. But in the meantime, until this card releases, I'm going to still say it's going to be a good card. I'm looking forward to see where it's going to take its turn in the meta, if it changes the meta, or if it's just going to leave the meta as the same. But even still saying that, Destroy meta is going to increase just that much of a fold. It's going to be fun, but also ridiculous at the same time. But yeah, White Widow will be the card I'll be getting this season with my tokens straight away. I'm looking forward to getting her and trying her in a variety of different decks. Hopefully you guys enjoyed a bit of different content today. If you're new or existing viewer, welcome, and thank you for taking your time for watching the White Widow review. Until next time, guys, have a good one, and I'll see you around. Peace.